Hello from San Diego again. It is beautiful weather here, and I'm glad I'm not in Philly right now where it's been cold, rainy, frozen rain, etc. I'm Wanda Curlee. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast on all things project, program, and portfolio management. So let's get started right away. I wanted to go to a different area other than the Project Management Institute. So I decided to look at the American Management Association's website. I'm glad I did because I was just amazed on what they provide to you for free. You don't even have to be a member, and you can get all kinds of articles, white papers, webinars. To be a member at AMA, though, it's quite expensive. It is $250 a year. But there's also an e-membership. I'm planning on looking at that. That's $50 a year. I will join, let you know what else you get with the e-membership. But before we go on, let me tell you about what's on this site. So to get to the American Management Association's website, it's www.amanet.org. That's www.amanet.org. Okay, so what did I do when I went out there? I kind of explored it a little bit, and they have an individual area, enterprise, government agencies, AMA membership if you're a member, AMA Advantage, news, and My AMA. What I did was go into the search by area, and I typed in project management. And again, I was amazed at how much is available there. So let me go to my notes right here and tell you what I found when I did that search. And it's, I got 298 results. Can you believe that? 298 on project management. Now, a lot of it had to do with team leadership and team dynamics and leadership itself. But it's all things that can do with project management, including soft skills. So again, from that 298 results, it kind of broke down like this. There were 16 seminars that you could access, 27 books, 5 podcasts, 7 web events. For articles and white papers, there were 246. Like I said, 246. Can you imagine that? And then there was for members only, there were 18 more items. Some of the books that were included on the website were AMA Handbook of Project Management, which I found fascinating. I was interested that the AMA had their own project management handbook. There was a Project Management That Works, Fundamentals of Project Management, and there's even a book on PMP prep. So they do acknowledge the Project Management Institute through their certification. The events are daily and sometimes more than one daily, and they happen Monday through Friday. You don't have to be a member to go to one of their webinars, so make sure you do that. Now, I also did a search on program management. I wasn't as fascinated with this area because I felt like most of it was just a repeat of project management, although it did bring in some other things. So what were the hits on that? There were 12 seminars, books there were 51, podcasts there was 1, web events there were 19, and articles and white papers were 185. Again, many of those were the same as the project management search engine, so I'm not sure that program management is a fundamental characteristic of the American Management Association website. If I looked on the news in project management, there were some areas that I wanted to bring in today. So again, if you want to go to the American Management Association, go to www.amanet.org. So let's look at what I found a little bit in the search for news and project management. Did you know about the Berlin airport? It was amazing to me that the Berlin airport is many years, that it has behind schedule. And of course, if it's behind schedule, it's over budget. So do a search on the Berlin airport and look at some of the failures that you can see in project management on that project. Let's see. Going on to some other things. I want you to check out projectnewstoday.com. That's projectnewstoday.com. And it's by Barry Hodge. I was absolutely fascinated with this because Barry does a thing with his website where he actually brings in all the articles that he has found. But other things that he has on his website besides articles is he has a blog, and it has to do with blogs on project management. He has articles, templates, and you can actually even shop on his website. But I wanted to tell you some of the articles that he has found and put on into his. One of them is about artificial intelligence and project management, which I found fascinating because I've always been saying an advocate of using artificial intelligence in our websites. And I'm not in our websites, but artificial intelligence for project management, because without it, there's just too much. And when I go into a little bit of more detail about some other articles I found, I'll bring in this area of artificial intelligence. So what are some other things that he's brought into his articles? He said, for those of you who are in the U.S. and you followed the Super Bowl last Sunday, you'll know that the Eagles won. But one of the titles here is Super Bowl coach Bill Belichick a detached jerk? If you noticed on the sidelines, if you watch the Super Bowl, he never cracks a smile. And he always gets very frustrated when his players don't do well. And he was very frustrated during the Super Bowl because they lost. The Patriots lost after winning 5 Super Bowls in a row, or at least within the last 3 years they've won Super Bowls. So the Philadelphia Eagles actually brought that to an end. So it's interesting that there was an analysis of his leadership. Another way is use 9 ways to discover the purpose of your team. There was one that I found quite interesting that was called How to Be a Badass Without Becoming a Jerkhole. Kind of interesting. Excuse my language, but I thought that was kind of an interesting article. Another article that is out there is on secret strategies to manage multiple projects. Again, if you're a project manager, you want to make sure that your projects align with the value proposition and to strategy within your organization. If it does not, then your project is probably not worthwhile for the organization, so your project may be canceled. The huge impact of early career development. As a project manager, you have to make sure that you know what your value statement is. So be able to get your elevator speech done quickly and early so that if it ever comes to you're in the elevator with the CEO or the head of a business organization, you know what to tell them. What are milestones in project management? So it talks about, he has articles in there about different aspects of project management. Then there's criminal records checking for project management contractors. Yes, there are criminals within the project management area. So make sure that when you have subcontractors, that a criminal check is done. It would behoove you and serve you well if you go to if your HR organization and have them do a criminal check. Why is it needed? Well, there are many reasons why it's needed. Especially if you're working on a contract with the U.S. federal government or any other state government. Many times they're not allowed to have anybody that is convicted of anything on a project. So make sure you do that. There's 7 steps for dealing with a difficult team member. Again, fascinating because we always have difficult people on our projects. Since projects are made of people, you're going to have different dynamics. You're going to have people that don't get along, but you still have to get the project to its end goal. Believe it or not, there are also articles in different languages. I found some in German. I wouldn't be surprised if there were also some in Spanish. Scheduling, how did we get here? We have to look at scheduling for what it is. Scheduling tells us, puts a stake in the sand to tell us where we might be at a certain time. But remember, changes are constantly happening. So this was a good article on scheduling. And as the title suggests, projectnewstoday.com suggests it only deals with project work. So don't expect to find program or portfolio. Yeah, I did mention there's some things on strategy, and there are. Again, project news, sorry, it's projectnewstoday.com, and it's done by Barry Hodges. It's a very good place to go to look for stuff at project management. Again, that was Project News Today. So let's change tempos a little bit here. Last Sunday, yeah, even though it was a Super Bowl, I'm not a great big Super Bowl fan. I'll admit I watch it for the commercials because some of them are fascinating. But last Sunday, I went to the circus with my granddaughter. And while they were setting up and doing all of the different things, I thought, wow, this is project management in action, because the circus has to look at all aspects of project management. They have the tearing down and then rebuilding the circus environment in different cities, and they do that almost weekly. They have to set up for different venues within the circus and do it on multiple days, multiple times during the day. So, for example, I went to a 12:30 p.m. Show, but they had another one at 3:30. So they have to be thinking about how they set up within that 12:31, but also go on to the 3:31. And while I was there, they were constantly changing, and it was orchestrated so that you don't really realize that they were changing things in there. So, for example, they had to set up for the trapeze. They had to set up for a tightrope walker. And while that all was going on, it was either intermission or they had clowns out there to take you away from looking at the project, but they got to their end goal. So I was constantly looking at that, and I'm thinking, wow, there's project management in everything that we do, even in our personal lives. So what I did was do a search just on the Bing search site, and again, that's Bing, B-I-N-G, and I did a search on project management, and I got so many hits. It was amazing. One of the ones that I thought was fascinating to me was called Neuroscientists to Explore Psychology of Project Management. And this is an area that I am very fascinated with, because right now neuroscience is it's at the toddler stage where we're able to look at what the brain is actually doing when we're on the job. So what did this guy do? He was looking at construction project management, and I was fascinated with some of the things that he found out. And let me read you the first, I don't normally read to you on this, but I wanted to read to you things that he actually found. So project management is at once one of the most important and most poorly understood areas of management. Think about that. He says, this is a neuroscientist who doesn't do project management except for his research, and he says it's one of the most important, yet it's most poorly understood areas of management. As if it's so important, why is it so poorly understood? So then he goes on and it says, delays and cost overruns are the rule rather than the exception in construction, defense, power generation, aerospace, product development, software, and other areas. Can you imagine that we have cost overruns and delays? If you've been a project manager for any amount of time and you work in these industries, and again, he didn't say the US, he said these for everybody, then you are aware of what's going on and how much cost overruns and delays you've had on your projects, whether you're a team member or you're the project manager. And I've been on some of those projects, and it's frustrating to me because you do everything that you're supposed to do, but yet you still have cost overruns and delays. Next, he says project management suffers from numerous problems of costing and scheduling. Again, it's because we don't do modeling. And I go back to an example that I used many years ago is on the Boston Dig. That's where they were building an interstate in the middle of downtown Boston, and they were building it underneath the city. It was overrun, cost delays, schedule delays, not enough resources, and on and on. However, they did a Monte Carlo analysis. The first project manager did that. And it was right on track. It really suggested what would happen on that. Because this project manager was bold enough to tell them, hey, we can't do it with the amount of money you're giving us, the resources, and the time you want it in, he was actually let go, and they brought in a different project manager that kind of said yes to the client. So next one, cost overruns of 100 to 200% are common. Can you imagine that, being on a project that's overrunning? And many times it's not the project manager's fault. Sometimes it is, and sometimes there's both to blame. Projects are often delayed to the point where the market decisions for which they were designed have changed. If you are behind schedule and you're overrunning with cost, do you really think that if you're trying to get something out to market that needs to be out there because it's competitive and you're delayed, that it's now worthwhile to bring to market? Probably not. So now you've just ruined all of this. Many projects suffer from the 90% syndrome, in which a project is thought to be 90% complete for half of the total time required. Isn't that sad that we constantly are telling our project sponsor and senior executives, oh, we're 90% complete, but that's been going on now for years or maybe months, depending on how long the schedule was supposed to be. So don't fall into that trap of 90%. Project management is often counterintuitive. While we think we know and we know that we should do this, it doesn't work out that way. So think about it. If you're running late, you might be throwing people onto the project because you're thinking more resources will make this project come in quicker. Not necessarily true. They have found out on software projects, if towards the end, if you start adding people, it's actually going to delay the software project even more. Let's see, customer design changes are frequent, generating costly ripple effects, which create delays and disruption throughout an entire organization. Think about that if you've ever been on a client project that you have to deliver to a client. And it can be internal or it can be external. If your client is constantly asking for changes, those changes are going to affect the project. And if you delay it long enough, now it's probably not what the client was expecting. So be careful that. Manage expectations. Projects often appear to be going smoothly until near the end, when errors made earlier are discovered. How many times, if you've done a software or some other construction management and you found an error, and it might be a terrible error, it could be an error that's going to affect lives, you have to be able to find those errors sooner, not later. And it's also been proven the sooner you find errors, the less costly it is to fix it. So try to find those errors early. Projects often, these errors are costly because they necessitate costly rework, expediting, overtime, hiring, schedule slippage, or reduction in project scope or quality. So how many times have you been on a project that you've had to minimize the scope because you're just overrunning and you can't get there? So to try to get there, you take out a lot of the scope. The consequences of these difficulties include poor profitability. If you're running over, of course your profit is going to go down. Loss of market share. If you're trying to get something out to the market and you get it out there late, you've now lost market share. And reputation. If you deliver something that's not to the expectations of your company, then your reputation is tarnished. Increased turnover of management and workforce, lower productivity, higher costs, and all too frequently divisive and costly litigation between customers and contractors over responsibility for overruns and delays. I'm not going to read any more, but I want you guys to think about this on this article. Here's somebody that is not a project manager by trade, but yet he has captured succinctly in one paragraph many, many, many of the issues that we have. So what does he say that we need to do? It's interesting that he says that we need to do systems dynamic models. So that system dynamic models, he says what happens is much of project management is done at based on expert thinking, based on what we've done in the past, based on many different things. But he's finding out that gut feel and human instinct, while they have a spot in a project, we need to actually use systems dynamic modeling tools. And this takes out a lot of the gut feeling and the instincts and actually brings together a project that can be delivered, that's complex, and has the ability to make your sponsor and your customer more to believe in you more. The problem I have with this, though, is project managers have been running Monte Carlo analyses for many years. And if it's something that the customer doesn't want to hear, then I'm going to find that the organizational culture for doing system dynamics models on projects, especially complex projects, is going to be a difficult thing to institute. There are system dynamic models out there that are very easy to use, and you can plug in the data, and that's another issue. If you don't have data on similar type projects, then you're not going to be able to do systems dynamic modeling. But with systems dynamic modeling, yes, there is a gut feel, and there are instinctual things that you put in there, but that kind of takes it all out. For example, he says in scheduling, when you do schedules, it doesn't take into account the complexity of the project. It might take it into account a little bit by putting in the risk, but be careful, it doesn't always do that. So I'm afraid that I don't think that this systems dynamics modeling will ever take place in my time, but I hope to see that it'll slowly take over. So let's go to a different type of project management. That was construction. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, there is actually a webinar on it. On this system dynamic models for project managers. I have signed up for it. It's on February 21st. It's offered by Sensei, and it's at noon Eastern U.S. time. I'll let you know what happens on that webinar and let you know if it's worthwhile. So let's shift gears, and so let's talk about legal project management. And I've discussed that before, but there was actually an article written on it, so let me access the article here. And it's called Legal Project Management. You can't fake it anymore. This was part 2. Service delivery as part of strategy and differentiation. It has been found that those legal partnerships, if they use project management and they use it correctly as a program and as also portfolio, they improve client relationship. It emphasizes efficiency rather than just getting things done, and it increases teamwork and collaboration. Collaboration hasn't normally been looked at within legal partnerships because I'm working with this client and you're working on that client, and heaven forbid that we go over. Now, granted, there are some legal issues that you have to be careful that you don't break when you're working with clients. But again, legal project management is no longer a buzzword. It has been accepted in major partnerships within the United States, and I'm going to venture to guess in almost worldwide any legal partnership. Another one that I found very interesting was in Hawaii. It was on the island of Maui. So let me look at my notes here. They're doing renewable energy for those in the island of Maui. And it's called the Maui Energy Company is actually partnering with the Molokai New Energy Partners. And what they are doing is that the Molokai New Energy Partners has a solar farm and batteries, renewable batteries. And the Maui Energy Company is buying electricity from this Molokai New Energy Partners. And it's expected to drive down the energy bills for the customers, which customers will love. And it's a way of doing renewable energy. So this is fascinating, and I really want to find out how it works out to see if it actually does drive down the cost for the customers, or if it's actually going to bring it up. If you know anything about this project, or if you're a project manager or the team member on here, please contact me so we can discuss it. I would be fascinated to get your thoughts on how well this project is going. Because while the project might be fascinating, it may not be something that is sustainable and may not end up with the goals that we would hope as a project. So I also want to give a shout out to Sarah Christensen and Nebo. I think that's how you pronounce the company, or it might be Nebo, but she was named Vice President of Project Management at the Nebo company. Can you believe that? Vice President of Project Management. I think this is something that all corporations need to have, or LLC or whatever you have, a partnership. There needs to be somebody in senior management that overlooks project management for the whole corporation. So we need more companies that understand the power of project management, and it can drive to the results and value add. So I was talking about system dynamics previous by Dr. Rex Young. There's also another one on systems dynamics modeling for project managers, for project management. It's a different one. It's by Dr. John T. Steinman. He's the director of Systems Dynamic Group at the Sloan School of Management. So this is a very reputable school of management in the United States. And he brings in different areas of project management as well. So let's change gears here a little bit. I wanted to again talk about the events of project management. So if you are a member of the PMI organization, there are some awards coming out. Sorry, I was looking at my notes. And they're coming here very soon. They have to be done by March 1st. And I will tell you that there is a lot of writing and a lot of background that you have to do if you nominate anybody or any organization for any of their awards. So if you're interested in doing that, please go out to PMI.org and you will find nomination packages, but just a little bit on them. They have one for a PMI fellow, and you cannot self-nominate. You have to be nominated by somebody else, other project managers. There is PMI Project of the Year. That is a big deal at the Project Management Institute. At the Global Congress that they have in the United States, that's where the Project of the Year is named. There's also a PMO of the Year. That is named at the PMO Symposium, which is also held in the United States. And there's a new one called the PMI Young Professional Award. That would be a fascinating one because we need to bring those up-and-coming chargers into the fold of project management. And many times the younger project managers are forgotten. So if you have a dynamic project manager that's working for you, please consider nominating them for PMI Young Professional. Remember, the Maya Congress is coming up very soon. It's from 7 to 9 May, and it's in Berlin, Germany. Maybe there'll be a paper on the Berlin airport there. That would be kind of fascinating. There's daily webinars on the American Management Association website. Remember to go out there and look and see what they have. They're on leadership. They're on team dynamics. There are just, like I said, 1 or 2 webinars a day, Monday through Friday. So go and check those out. And again, you don't have to be a member of AMA to attend the webinars. There's Seminars World every month. Next week, it's happening in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm going to guess that it's almost too late to attend right now if you haven't already signed up. Then the PM Expo, so that's PM Expo, is happening on 22 March. It's a virtual event. And it happens from 10:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. So that's all the events that are coming here. So let me also tell you about a call to action. I would love for you to go to www.pmcurrent.com. PM Current is where you'll find some tips and tools, and you can access these podcasts. Again, that's www.pmcurrent.com. And also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. To get to the YouTube channel, if you're not viewing this on YouTube, go to my website at www.pmpower.com, and you can access the YouTube. You can please also like me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I would please love to have you like and even comment on some of these podcasts, on anything that you have that has to do with project management, because I'd love to see what you have to say about these podcasts and if they're meeting your needs. Remember, I'm Wanda Curlee, and this is all about this is the Authority on Project, Program, and Portfolio Management. Also, please let me know anything else that you want me to discuss, and you can send me an email at wanda@pmpowered.com. I would love to hear from you. I would love to understand what you want to hear about. So if I'm not covering, or if I missed something that you really want me to go into detail, please let me know. Again, my email is wanda@pmpowered.com. Thank you, and I look forward to speaking to you next week.